through different perspectives. So I think that, texts dealing with nature or describing human nature relationships should be reinterpreted from today's perspective. And ancient wisdom has to be taken more seriously, particularly because we haven't done so far. We have done it, but in a fringe kind of a way. Well, time does not permit me to really go into all aspects of this Bhumi Sutta. But one of the other reasons which I think that I wanted to talk about this was because apart from these considerations, we have to challenge the outmoded colonial perception, and especially when we link the colonial perception to such texts as I'm going to be reading. We find that the scriptural verses on nature that extol such attitude, where there's reverence of nature, or which talk about human nature connections, were looked upon by the West by mere collections of primitive songs of nature worship, and they were looked upon as reflection of archaic sort of animism, crude allegories, immature poetical ramblings that reflect non-civilized form of primitive state of human consciousness. And that is what I think we need to challenge. At least that's what I'm setting out to challenge. I don't know whether I can do justice to it. I don't need to, go further into the problems of what I call eco-apartheid today. And most of us live as nature-deprived citizens, living in urban anonymity. Industrial pollutants, threats of global climate change. Yesterday, I was a victim of climate change because I've reached here 8 hours later. So it's happening every day. Disappearing ozone layer depletion, depleted forests, pollution of rivers and oceans caused by poisonous effluents. The list is endless. So I personally feel that worldviews found in ancient sacred texts of the world that are sensitive to the ethos of human-nature relationship are critical to the recovery of our fast disappearing spirituality of the earth. And one of the problems that we are facing today, and we are all facing this problem each day, is the clash of worldviews. And that is very, very prominent in India because we are an ancient culture where 3 times survive together. We have the modern, we have the Adivasi tradition, which is the primal cultures, the indigenous cultures, the forest cultures, and then you have modern cultures, which have come from the Western paradigm. So on one hand, we have profit-seeking, throwaway consumerism based on rank exploitation of natural resources. And we are seeing the impact of what is happening in Uttaranchal and the Himalayas, is now plastic-laden, whether you want to believe it or not. So that's one type of worldview. And on the other hand, you have the ecocentric, village-based, a holistic worldview of people who've lived in close partnership with nature, and which, of course, Mahatma Gandhi talked about. So at this very crucial, I would say, moment of history, cultural history of India, we need an entirely new paradigm where there is radical shift in consciousness from the erroneous belief in consumer-oriented materialistic model of contemporary industrial technological civilization to a more eco-friendly model of growth. And the new model of eco-dharma, as I see it, for an ecologically sustainable civilization of tomorrow must be an inclusive one, joining the scientific understanding of cosmology, astrophysics, and biology with affirmative moral value and ethical codes from the vast repository of the sacred texts of world's religions. Therefore, the role of dharma has never been more relevant as before. So we have to take this kind of scholarship seriously. Now, one of the other reasons which I'm going to be talking about Atharva Veda, because when you compare the Atharva Veda with Rig Veda, you know, Rig Veda resonates with praise hymns to deities of the sky, earth, atmosphere, thunder, rain, sun, and wind. But when we come to the Atharva Veda, it's a collection of 760 hymns and 5,000 stanzas divided into 20 books. But what is interesting about the Atharva Veda is here the attention of the forest-dwelling seers has shifted from the sky-pervading gods to the life-sustaining earth. Vedic culture, as we know, was rooted in a very high degree of material comfort. The main concern of Atharvan hymns is to provide protection and bestow beneficence to people for a long and fulfilling life on earth. So there is a shift we find, and Atharva Veda, as we know, is also the foundational text for Ayurveda. The first verse itself speaks of plants and healing, and there are many, many verses on healing and how plants are used in healing, for healing. And it is regarded by all Ayurvedic experts as the primal, the first text. Now, why is this Bhumi Sukta important? I mean, when I was researching into it, I was quite surprised. It's important that because the hymn, this particular hymn, has enjoyed an undiminished respect by scholars, policymakers, politicians, religious specialists, and secularists down to the modern times. And of course, all these people have not studied all aspects of the hymn. I tried to do that in my humble way. But what is interesting is that each one of these people have, quoted the Atharva Veda, Bhumi Sukta, some way or the other when they're talking of ecology. So you have, for instance, Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi, she quotes it, Karan Singh has quoted it, and all the United Nations environmental program pamphlets and books, there's honorific mention of the verses from Bhumi Sukta. Now, these references show the unchallenged position of the ancient hymn, which is simultaneously old and new, as I see it. And that's a very important part. Because when we look at tradition, we feel, it's something to be erased and wiped out. But then there are things in our culture which are perennial. Truth, notions of truth, for instance, and many other things. And I think it's about time we took that seriously, that what is ancient can be equally modern, provided we understand it. And that is why I thought I'll say a few words about this. Now, the Bhumi Sukta has 63 verses, and it deals with almost all aspects of human nature relationship, or that's the way I see it. And I mean, it opens up with beautiful verses describing the immortal beauty and splendor of Mother Earth. Several invocations extol the beauty, and you have the earth is, for instance, Vishwambhara, support of everything, with a heart of molten gold, Hiranyavaksha. She is Giryate Parvate Himavanta. It consists of beautiful snow-clad mountains, etc. And there are wide descriptions. Now, there are references to large number of animals, which I thought was quite fascinating. From lions, tigers, birds, scorpions, wild beasts. References to forest lands, green pastures, of rice and barley, mountains, rocks, soil, dust, life-bestowing waters, seas, rivers, waterfalls, springs, and half of them maybe don't even exist now. All these flourish in the lap of the primal elements, elements are also mentioned. And now, what do these long descriptions on nature tell us? That is the crucial point here. These long descriptions may be read as a normative concept of the conservation of biodiversity and diverse ecosystems that our sages kind of, recorded that form the composite network of biological organisms. And I'll come to why I say this a little later. So these literary devices were invocations of gratitude that would stir ecologically sustainable attitude and behavior. you know. This is one of the things. And then we come to passages that talk about the fragrance of the earth. That's the element, one of the elements. Then earth is looked upon as an eternal matrix on whom moves all that breathes and stirs. And there are long descriptions of that. I can't go into the detailing, but sometime I may. Then she is referred to as Dharani or Dharti. And by reason of this, the seers realize the generosity and patience of the long enduring earth, you know, the endurance and Kshama and Dharti, Dharani are the values linked with the earth. Then, of course, there is a wonderful passage describing the divinity of earth as mother. And this is not linked only to the Vedas. This you find the whole of Mediterranean and Southeast Asia, where earth is looked upon as mother, as a mother of humankind. The earth is mother, I am the child of earth. It goes like that. So the earth is supreme, loving, sustaining mother. She's beautiful, fertile, nurturing, and generous. She's close to humans as their own skin. As person's entire existence depends upon her, human is of earth and part of the earth. Then the earth is also linked with the power of creativity and fecundity, which forms her essential nature. So in one verse, you germinate the seed with quickening power. The earth mother is the vitality that generates growth and germination. And that's cyclic, because the growth and germination in nature is always linked, is always a cycle. So, but it's interesting that if on one hand, Earth Mother awakens the fertility of soil from its potential state, it also encompasses the reality of death. The mythical destiny of Earth is to stand at the beginning and end of every biological form and share in the history of human destiny. Thus, she mediates between life and death. And life consists of abundant growth, involving a brief detachment from the womb of Mother Earth. Death is a return to that eternal condition. So, you know, so that is the way it is looked upon. Now, it was very interesting for me to read that this constant appearance of the word pancha jana, you know, in the verses, in at least 2 verses. And when I began to read it further, I realized that they were really referring to what I call as equality and unity of all races and interpersonal relationships. Because when we look at Indian history, we find that ancient Indian society is a formation of 4 streams. You had the Vedic people, the people of the Harappan civilization, the Adivasis, and the tribal population, and the Dravidians. As no social group can live in vacuum, it is quite obvious that to meet the challenges of the pluralistic society in ancient times, strategies had to be evolved, norms had to be set to negotiate a peaceful coexistence of communities where each group, indigenous or foreign, retain its distinct identity while respecting the individual rights of the other. So when this word Panchajana comes, Sayana, the well-known commentator of the Vedas, gives an inclusive reading of this verse to connote the 4 castes and the rest of the people, attesting to, firstly, the existence of mixed populations, and secondly, the moral imperative of peaceful coexistence of diverse races. And what is interesting is that then in the Bhumi Sutra, we read verses like, may earth who bears mankind, each different grouping, maintaining its own custom and speech, yield up for me 1,000 streams of nectar. Beautiful invocation, absolutely. So the loving, sustaining mother does not divide and rule. This is a very important thing. And the reason why Western cultures have divided and ruled is because they don't believe that the earth is animated and is spiritual. You know, they have a totally different approach which comes from Christianity. We won't look at it today. So Mother Earth is a sanctuary to all, irrespective of their caste, creed, origin, gender. All peoples are equal to her. And again, another beautiful verse, one of my favorite. She carries in her lap the foolish and also the wise. She bears the death of the wicked as well as the wise. It's Panikar's translation. So what is being told to us is that this is an overwhelmingly sensitive passage, preaches the pursuit or practice of peace among diverse cultural groups, and inspires us to free the earth from wars, grief, rage, and loss of resources. Now, then again, of course, these ideas are picked up in the Yajurveda, which has this famous verse, "May there be concord with own people and concord with foreign people. May I look upon all beings as a friend," you know. So the reason I'm quoting this is that, you know, today we are living in a world of geo-wars, you know. All our boundaries, whether it's Southeast Asia or on the other side, everybody's fighting with each other without realizing that, you know, you have to have a strategy of peaceful coexistence, and that can only come from world's religions. It cannot come from the Constitution of India, although the Constitution of India speaks about it, you know, all the time. Okay, then we come to the other concepts. I won't dwell on it because Bhattji has spoken about Rita. I will add Satya to it, you know, because the two very important concepts, Rita, the inflexible law, and how this law is at every level. Then the other concept which interconnects is Bandhu, interconnectedness of all life. And now these ideas obviously give rise to what we call how we should treat the earth. So the Vedic vision of geopiety considers humans to be guardian of natural resources and one who replenishes the bounties of earth rather than plunders it. Now what is interesting is that the idea of deification of Mother Earth naturally led to its conservation and protection, and eventually created a code of eco-dharma. The notion of dharma in India, now this is crucial for today's lecture, included not only person's responsibility to one's family and community, but the eco-dharma towards the environment. And this is, of course, even the Honorable Chairperson touched upon it, and there are reams and reams written about it in the Purans. Huge sections. How we should treat trees, how we should look upon rivers, what happens if there's a famine, what is the ethical code, and of course the first environmentalist was Ashoka, you know, himself. The first environmentalist in India was Mauryan King Ashoka, who created hospitals for insects and many other things, you know. So that idea of compassion, all these things really come from such a philosophy. And there's a beautiful another verse from the Atharva Veda, 1 minute only, which says, "Whatever I dig of you, earth, may you of that have quick replenishment, O pure one. May my trust never plunder thy vital points, thy heart." So there is a kind of how much of resources can you take? You know, it's an ethical code. So what the Atharva Veda has given us is a holistic environmental ethos. And this is very well stated in the first verse, which talks about Satya, truth, which is a metaphysical and moral principle. It speaks about rhythm, inflexible law, which cuts through all aspects of life. And it speaks about tapas. Tapas here doesn't mean ascetic fervor, but it means consumption of fewer resources. That's what it means, moderate use of resources. And then it speaks about Diksha. Diksha here, of course, doesn't mean initiation, but it really means consecration, prayer, and ritual. So according to this view that we have in the Vedas, particularly in the Bhumi Sutra, this is my interpretation, the highest power of the universe is not the power that dominates, plunders, and violates the natural resources, but one which preserves, conserves, and nurtures the environment. This power of transformation and illumination is guided, as Gandhi said, by our needs and not by greed. Here, denial does not mean self-negation, but denial of that which is not necessary. Now, today, unfortunately, frugality and simplicity of life is regarded as a subversive virtue. So the verse reminds us that if the need of personal restraints is not taken seriously, it would be the end of our species and our planet. The configuration of categories then that hold us together with the earth are harmony, balance, truth, order, prayer, and ethical restraints. That's what it says. Now, there are modern parallels in deep ecology, which I can't go through because there's no time. I just want to end up by, sharing with you one particular idea that, I mean, there's no gainsaying that this Atharva Veda, Bhumi Sutra, has outlined a profound ethos of ecological sustainability. But what does this sukta tell us quintessentially? Now, what it tells us, and this is something that we have to remind ourselves again and again, it tells us that Mother Earth has rights. You cannot just go and plunder anything the way you wish to do it, because Mother Earth is as sensitive and as active a principle as a human being. In other words, that it's our human actions that shape our environment, and environment shapes us. And that symbiosis we have to recognize. While modern environment is shaped by knowledge of commerce, technology, modern science, we should not forget that each particle of dust and biota is deserving of our care, stewardship, and respect for us to make up to the ethical and spiritual response to the environmental crisis. And that's where religions become important. So my last comment is, now ancient sources, such as the one I have been talking about, are a formidable resource of a worldview and cosmology that can provide powerful guidance for shaping a sustainable environmental policy for a just and sustainable globalized world. To sum up, while the Vedic vision of geopiety as presented in the Atharva Veda makes a good case for the reconstruction of a value-based eco-dharma, it also brings home the fact that the emerging image of the earth as one organism, which is put forward by the Gaia hypothesis and modern theories, worthy of respect, is a recent image traceable to one of the oldest religious scriptures of the human race, which is the Vedas. Now, Atharva Veda is 1500 BC, and of course, Rig Veda is earlier. So I go back to the first sentence I started with, that what is ancient is made here simultaneously modern. So, we don't have to look at this as fossilized literature, but something which is active, something which is progressive, and something which can transform not only India, but the globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Khanna, for a very stimulating presentation. We have to care for purity and sanctity of nature. We are born in nature, we live with nature, and we should also live for nature. This is the crux of the message of Bhumi Sutra of Atharva Veda. Unfortunately, we have been only raising environmental concern. We have not cultivated environmental consciousness which our ancestors had. And our concern also is only with regard to the external nature. What we talk of these days is only the surface ecology. We have not bothered about the depth ecology, which Vedas also talk of. And the depth ecology is, say, purity of the mind and brilliance of intellect. Our intellect should be bright enough to see what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. Diyo yona prachodayata. So it is the kindling of the intellect, the wisdom. And our mind, because it is the mind which makes us to act. If our mind is pure, our action also will be pure. If our mind is not pure, action also will not be pure. This is the message of Dhammapada. And therefore, we insist that tanme manaha Shiva sankalpamastu, our mind must be pure. Nature is benevolent and bountiful, and it helps us. But it will help us provided we help nature to help us. Unfortunately, we have not been approaching nature with reverence, with gratitude. When our ancestors worshipped all height of nature, earth, air, water, fire, even animals, we worship lions, we worship snakes, we worship scorpions also. So it's not animism. In fact, it is a display of our gratitude to nature, because every height of nature is helpful, is instrumental for our well-being. It is this sort of depth ecology that we have now to cultivate, and I congratulate you for emphasizing Bhumi Sutra, and also you have rightly pointed out that we have to have a relook at the past heritage. No culture can survive and thrive if it doesn't pay heed to the past. But of course, we have to be no doubt deeply rooted in the past, but should also be firmly footed in the present and should have a glorious view of the future. So it is future which is more important. Past is to be banked upon, no doubt. The future of humankind, and for that matter, the entire cosmos is at threat, and we have to see to it that we not only have raised just concerns, but also cultivate environmental consciousness. Thank you very much. Now I request Professor Sinha. He is a professor of comparative religion and Sanskrit in Saskatchewan University, Canada. Professor Sinha, please.
Professor Bhatt, Madam Vice Chancellor, members of the Board of Directors of India Foundation, my dear friend from old times, not old friend, Dr. No, when I came here, I started looking for him, and I was told he has not arrived yet. I just want to, esteemed colleagues and students, I express my deep appreciation for this opportunity to be here in the place, in the land that is closest to my heart, having lived for almost 5 decades abroad, having not forgotten for one single moment of what Mother India, the Bharat Mata, and this land of rishis and the sages of the past, the Bihar and the Rajgriha, has given me as my heritage, of which I remain ever grateful and proud. So I like to say very quickly, I come here not as a scholar, not as a professor, not as an academician, but the son of the soil who has deep reverence for the soil. Because in this soil was planted the seeds from which have sprouted the branches and trees of the wisdom that has informed and transformed the destiny of the nations beyond India for centuries and millenniums. So, I look for guidance in this tradition. The topic that I had spoken to Madam Vice Chancellor about, in a general way, I wanted to talk about the state, coercion, and ethical order. In technical terms, it translates into the big debate that has gone within the Indian tradition between the Dandaniti, Arthashastra, ways of looking at state, and what I call Dharma-Sutras, way of looking at state, and bringing them together in a creative dialogue, not for the purpose of simply dialogue, but for the purpose of seeking wisdom how to deal with a state in the modern context, especially when we live in an age where there are failed states, where there are corrupt states, where there are defunct states, and so on and so forth. I look at the state as the fundamental custodian of the common good, and the state functionaries as the agent of the state with the task of protecting the interests of the people and the managing of the common good in a responsible manner. The state is an amorphous entity which becomes tangible only through its functionaries who have specific responsibilities. So when we speak of the power and responsibilities of the state, we will have to speak through the dharmic tradition's reflections on the state as an embodiment of as embodied in the king. So when I will make references, so I want to put my cards on the table. Nowhere in the Hindu tradition, nowhere in the Indic tradition, we specifically talk about a state, we talk about king as the embodiment of the state. But whatever is being said about the king applies to the state. And wherever we don't talk about functionaries and bureaucracies, but we talk about Kshatriya and Kshatriya Dharma. And Kshatriya does not belong to a caste. Of course it is there, but we are talking about functionaries of the state. So my categories will be very clear. Whenever I say king, please read state, and when I say Kshatriya, please read functionaries of the state, because that's the modern context. We take a monarchical model and apply to the democratic framework within which we are all operating. The state, when I look at it, it is like the proverbial hydra that embraces us with 1,000 arms and gazes into our eyes with 1,000 eyes. And the embrace is warm and comforting, and in many ways quite soothing. And the gaze is really very, very seductive. Actually, it is enchanting and it's very sweet. That's what the state does in many ways. And I'm happy with that. But let's not fool ourselves. There are moments and occasions, and there are more than one or more than two or many moments when this embrace can also become constraining and constricting and pushing us so hardly that very life breath can be lost. And this gaze of the state, when the state looks into it, it's wielding its coercive power, it becomes very, very difficult to look at that gaze, because that hurts me. So what do I do in a situation like that? I look up to the tradition. I say, is there in the dharmic sense, is there a wisdom that will allow me to deal with this aberrations of the state so that we can bring the state back to what it is supposed to be? The dilemma was faced by one of the great prominent personality, great prominent son of this great tradition, Bhishma Pitama. You remember this story, many of you remember this story. At a particular point, Draupadi faces Bhishma Pitama and looks into his eyes and says, Pitamaha, you were the custodian of the state. You had the power to prevent all kinds of indignities that can be perpetrated. You had the power to stop it, Pitamaha. And right in your presence, my own honor of your own Kulabadhu, honor of your own daughter-in-law, honor of the queen of the nation was being debased. And what did you do? Why didn't you why didn't you prevent it from happening? And the Pitama didn't have any courage to look into her eyes, but still he tried to defend himself and said, "But daughter, I was bound by my own dharma. I was bound by my own dharma. I had taken this vow to protect the state embodied in the king to whom I owe my allegiance." And at that point, the master himself, the grand teacher himself of the Hindu tradition, the incarnate Lord who was standing right there, Krishna, said, "Pitamaha, dharma does not bind, dharma liberates. It is the power of freedom, power of liberation." So when we bind ourselves with dharma, either we have misunderstood dharma or we are allowing ourselves to be bound by misconstrued dharma. This state and state power and their use, the tradition has different ways of dealing with it. The real challenge arises when the dharmic allegiances of the king conflicts with the dharmic allegiance to the state, which is the reason dated for the existence of the king. The dilemma, so tellingly reflected in the genuine lamentation of Bhishma Pitamaha, has its basis in the conception of Dandaniti tradition of the Arthashastra lineage on the one hand and dharmic tradition of the Mahabharata as delineated by Vyasa in the Santi Parvan of Mahabharata through Bhishma Pitamaha. The dialogue that takes place between Yudhishthira, the Dharmaraja, and the grandsire of the Kuru clan, Sri Bhishma Pitamaha, provides a framework for us, for our current quest for looking for a dharmic basis of contemporary political engagement. Historians of Hindu tradition, political ideas, have incessantly emphasized the Machiavellian orientation of the Mahabharata by suggesting that Mahabharata maintains unqualified allegiance to Arthashastra political categories. However, it is important to recognize that in the Santi Parvan of the Mahabharata, a new conception of Raja Dharma emerges, which attempts to synthesize the Dandaniti categories of the Arthashastra with the Raja Dharma notion of the Dharma Sutras. Vyasa in the Santi Parvan of Mahabharata has taken a very bold step in attempting to provide a comprehensive conception of Raja Dharma, and particularly talking about the state today. It is not the Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana that we are talking about. Raja Dharma, in which the Dandaniti categories of the Arthashastra tradition is combined with the Dharma categories of the Dharma Sutras. The specific objective of the Mahabharata synthesis of the Arthashastra tradition of the Dandaniti with that of the Dharma categories of the Dharma Sutras is to infuse in the structure of a statecraft an element of ethics that can only be characterized as universal dharmic principle relevant for all time and all ages, all states and all places. The Dandaniti of the Arthashastra tradition is subjected to the restraint of the universal principle of dharma. There emerges a new conception of Kshatriya dharma, that is dharma of the ruling classes, dharma of the political functionaries, dharma of the state functionaries, or to use our contemporary idiom, the dharma of those who have been given the responsibility to protect the interest of the state, which is the embodiment of the people, not that the king is the embodiment of the state. So, we do find in our ancient tradition significant conceptual framework with which we can deal with the challenges of the modern times. The text declares dharma is the fundamental principle of human conduct. The king upholding dharma is the very epitome of ethical conduct. The creatures are grounded in the king. The king who rightly upholds dharma is indeed a king. Read there the state. How far removed Mahabharata notion of the Raj Dharma is from the Arthashastra injunction, the coercive state. Arthasastra injunction to the king becomes abundantly clear in the passages describing the significance of the principle of righteousness in state administration and public policy. Thus, the text declares Mahabharata. Righteousness is called dharma. The sages, O king, have declared that the dharma restrains and sets bounds to all evil acts of human beings. The Lord created dharma for the advancement and the growth of creatures, the people. For this reason, a king should act according to dictates of dharma for benefiting his subjects. For this reason also, dharma has been said to be the foremost of all things, disregarding lust and wrath. And I wouldn't say anything about what has happened recently in the courts in Bihar. For this reason also, disregarding lust and wrath, observe them, then the dictates of the righteousness, the dharma. Among all things that conduce to the prosperity of the state, righteousness is the foremost. Dharma is the foremost. The supreme ethical significance of the principle of dharma is the fundamental raison d'etre of the king, who is governed by and governs by the principle of dharma. As we reflect on these, it becomes quite clear that righteous king, that is the righteous state, is the very foundation of social, moral, and cosmic order. When the king ceases to be righteous, neglecting his Raj Dharma or her Raj Dharma, untold miseries afflict the kingdom. Beyond the functional value of Raj Dharma, for the maintenance of social and cosmic order, there is clear affirmation of the universal principles of dharma having deep and significant ethical implications. Instead of putting the interests of the king and the state above all interests, that is the way of the Dandaniti of Dharmasastra, Mahabharata makes dharma, Dharmaraja, subservient to the interest of all. There emerges here a new conception of Kshatriya dharma, a conception that is far more noble than any previous body of Hindu literature had suggested. This metamorphosis of the Kshatriya dharma, the functionary of the state, is the need of the hour. Nothing less than this will satisfy the anguished cry of the Yudhishthira. Only this transformed character of Kshatriya dharma can qualify to be the fountainhead of all dharma. Yudhishthira, the Kshatriya prince called Dharmaraja in the Mahabharata, is the epitome of tension between Kshatriya dharma informed by the Dandaniti prescriptions of Ardhasastra and the new universalist principles of the Kshatriya dharma being enunciated in the Mahabharata. In this particular situation, the tension is clearly perceived between the Arthasastra principles, and I will skip some of the part, principles of statecraft that Bhisma is laying down for Yudhishthira, and dharma categories of the conduct that Yudhishthira operating within the framework of this tradition of Dharma Sutras holds so dear to his heart. His anguish, as we all know, is born of the tension between the Kshatriya dharma in its particularistic context, as the Bhisma Pitamaha was saying, and what he perceives to be the universal principles of the dharma. Let me proceed by simply saying then, or probably, how much time do you have left? Let me conclude in a way then. This new universalistic understanding of the need to pursue a dharmic approach to the coercive state, the Dandaniti, state power, based on Dandaniti demanding total allegiance not to the king or the state functionaries, but to the state as a representation of the common good derived from common will. It challenges the state functionaries, Kshatriya then, state functionaries today, the ruling classes, the legislative, military, judicial, and the executive functionaries of the state to rise above the individual and particularistic allegiance, which Bhisma was not able. It commands them to rise above the idea of Dandaniti as the guiding principle of statecraft, demanding total allegiance to the head of the state or the functionaries of the state and become true surrogate of the state. It demands them to rise above that. It demands from the state functionaries allegiance to the state which represents the well-being of all, of the masses and the common folk. There lies the true purpose of the state being the mechanism of liberation. Krishna had said, Dharma does not bind Pitama, it liberates. It offers an opportunity, mechanism for freedom from hunger, from thirst, harshness of life, hardships and fear of the danda and the wilder of danda. Guided by Dharma, the state can become the true harbinger of the peace and conflict resolution and foundation of a truly caring, compassionate, inclusive society. This is a dharmic perspective that we need. This is the dharmic perspective that we need to look up to as our guiding principle at this particularly important moment in Indian polity that is poised to harbinger a new age of dharmic statecraft and pursuit of dharmic public policy. On the way, there are challenges and there are opportunities. It is our task to transform the challenges into opportunities and opportunities into reality. So friends, welcome to this grand task, the task of creating a kind, compassionate, inclusive society grounded in the dharmic approach to universal ethical principles that Mahabharata has offered to us. Embrace it with enthusiasm, rejoice in it, and celebrate the dawn of this new dharmic age. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Sinha, for a very lucid account of Indian cultural ethos with regard to political governance, which is being guided by the principle of welfareism. You have referred to Arthashastra of Kautilya, which begins with a verse stating that the happiness of a king or a ruler lies in the happiness of the ruled, the people. The term that we use for a ruler is nripu, nrinam palayati. That which protects and nourishes the people is nripu. And other synonym is raja, ranjayati iti raja. That which makes people happy is the raja. So this has been, in fact, the guiding principle of statecraft in ancient times. This is because a ruler is duty bound to see to it that each and every individual of his or her state gets equal opportunity for self-development and thereby realize happiness. This is possible if and only if the ruler is not self-interested, self-centered, and always cares for others. In the other's happiness lies his or her own happiness. Well, this should be the motto of a ruler. Kautilya therefore pointed out that it is the duty of a ruler to see to it that all resources for development of the people and making them happy should be made available. So two principles he referred to, yoga and kshema, protection of the existing resources, both natural resources as well as human resources, and this is kshema, another is yoga, augmenting the existing resources. So creation of resources, well, this is the job of a ruler. And after having created the resources, it is again the job of a ruler to see to it that those resources are judiciously distributed so that there is no deprivement, there is no injustice, there is no discrimination. And for that, again, there are two guiding principles, asteya and aparigraha. To deprive others from their legitimate needs is a theft. And a king should see to it that there is no theft prevalent in his or her kingdom. And the other is we should utilize only that much of resources which we require and leave the rest for the posterity. This is aparigraha. This is a intergenerational justice. So it is a task of a ruler to see to it that justice prevails. And all this is possible if and only if it is a Dharmaraja. I would call it as Dharmocracy. So Dharmaraja therefore has to be established. And Indian culture has always stood for that. Time is up, no? Yeah. Now I request Venerable monk from Mongolia to make his presentation, and thereafter we shall be concluding. Thank you.
Dear Your Excellency, Professor Ravinda Sharma, and eminent scholars and Dharma friends of Mongolia. First, I would like to thank the organizing committee of this significant Fourth International Conference in Dharma-Dhamma tradition for inviting and giving me rare opportunity to deliver the speak. And also, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to all the people who are devotedly working to broaden the relation between two countries, spiritually ties over the centuries. And today I humbly request you to take my short presentation into your kind account. The Mongolian steppe witnessed the threefold Buddhist scripts and Buddhist sutras and shastras have been translated since the time of Uyghurs. Seemingly, there is a potential trace of such a translation recorded even before the 13th century. The 13th century or early 14th century, Mongols extensively translated Buddhist scriptures from the following languages, such as Tibetan and Sanskrit and Chinese. And for example, one of the tutor of the Kublai Khan and Karunadas and translated the Manjushri Namsam Gati from Uyghur resources in 1302. And also Pandita Chuji also and translated and Shantidevas Bodhicharya Avatariya in 1305 and also in Panch Raksha in 1308 into Mongolian language from the Sanskrit language and Tibetan language. And also, during that time, Mongolian interpreter Sharaf Singh and Pandita Punyashri translated the Savarna Prapa Sutra from the Tibetan language. And it is very interesting and unclear that exactly when the Mongols were introduced to Sanskrit literature, why it had significant influence on the later day literature. This still needs to be studied attentively. And in the 15th century, the translation of Buddhist scripts such as sutras and shastras was highly supported by state. And during the time of Tuman Khan and Atman Khan, it started translated Gangyur and Dengyur from the Tibetan language, which compiled more than 5,000 narrative works in the Sanskrit language. It was compiled in 1629 by the role of the Ligdan Khan, and 108 volume of Gangyur was printed for first time in years between 1728 and 1730, and also 220 volumes of Dengyur were compiled and printed in years of between 1742 and 1749. And after that, the Mongolians didn't only translate Buddhist manuscripts from the Sanskrit and Tibetan languages, but they also edited and wrote and composed the commentaries on 5 major and 5 minor Buddhist sciences. Today, hundreds of those works have been preserved. And our main focus of the presentation will be highlights how Dharma principles and implemented by Buddhist monasteries and societies such as non-governmental organization and non-profit organization in modern society. The main idea of the Dharma concepts are expressing to wish the happiness to everyone and relieve the suffering of everybody. And people should to treat each other as they would like to be treated in themselves with consideration and compassion and tolerance. And therefore, engage Dharma activities done by Buddhist monasteries and NGOs and NPOs played a crucial role to ease and financial and social and natural disaster in individuals as well as countries since the 1990 societal transition. Another important feature of engaged Dharma activities are for easing the stress of people in social and health difficulties and teaching them how to live in peace and harmony and healthy life and adopts principles in their daily life. And also, our next topic is in Buddhist monasteries, Dharma activities in modern Mongolian society, and I would like to invite my colleague and Dharma friend from Mongolian National University, and his name is Dembrel. He would share some Dharma activities in Mongolia. Yes, thank you.
The Buddhism is the status quo religion in Mongolia. The Mongolian Buddhists believe in the Buddha, his Dharma, and Sangha. The Buddha taught the nature of the world is the anicca. The anicca brought some positive effects and negative effects. Early 1990s, after collapse of socialist regime, Mongolia faces social, financial problems that resulted from rapid change during the societal transition. Rapid change of the political, economic, social brought some negative effects such as unemployment, alcoholic addiction, family divorce, poverty, street children, school dropouts in Mongolian society. During the social economic transitional period in 1990s, Buddhist monasteries and lay Buddhist NGOs have played crucial role to ease social and financial problem of the underprivileged people in the society. Now I would like to present the visual presentation I have arranged. And, please go through the. Yeah, I will not take too much time of you. Okay. The Buddhist social works and Dharma activities engaged by the Mongolian Buddhist monasteries and lay Buddhist NGOs. Please show the pictures of our Buddhist monastery activities. Go through. Next presentation, please. Next slide. Next. These sutras, the Mongolian old sutras, which express the Dharma concepts, like Dharmacakkaparvartana Sutra, 4 Noble Truths, 8 Noble Parts in old Mongolian languages. Nowadays, we are translated it, changed in the modern Mongolian times. Please, next slide. This Danjur is consisted of the Nalanda, the Buddhist masters, such as the works of Nagarjuna, Aryandeva, Chandrakirti, and Dharmakirti. All those the Dhamma commentary Shastra works consisted in Danjur volume. Please next. This is the Danjur written in old Mongolian scripts. Please next. This is we using our during the after 21 the communist revolution. We adopted the Cyrillic script. Now we the translating or transcripting it into Cyrillic scripts. We're doing the research on this kind the Buddhist Shastras. Next presentation. Next slide, please. This all the Mahayana texts that transcribed in Cyrillic languages. Please, next. Now, I would like to highlight the Buddhist social works and Dharma activities by Mongolian monasteries. This is the main monastery in our country, Kandan Dekchilem Monastery. The Buddhist works and Dharma activities conducted by first the monks, and they are very active in social works during the transitional period. Please, next slide. Nowadays, in the latest survey indicates about the 139 the monasteries functioning, operating in our country in 21 provinces, encompassing around the 140 odd monks. Okay, please, next slide. The Dharma activities and social works, they focused on some target groups: children, single parents, elderly people, sick people, inmates, homeless people, poor people, and trauma victims, and orphans. So please, next the slide. This table shows like types of the Buddhist social work and Dharma activities, considering the type of the target groups, such as individual and households, Buddhist monks and monasteries, helping the assistance in food items, clothing, firewood and coals, tuition fee and bursary, and such the social activities done by Buddhist monasteries. A specific group of population is like the Buddhist monasteries working with some inmates and prisoners, and working with the single parents or training them to get in, adapt in social changes. Please, next. Here, our Buddhist monks in Lai Buddhist doing the social works. They have visited the mental hospitals, giving some the medical the equipments, appliance to the hospital. Next slide, please. Also, monks are very active in organizing the healthy day events. They're offering the free medical checkups. They invited the nurses and doctors, their monastery compound, and serving the people. Please, next slide. Also, the Buddhist monks in Mongolia are very active. They're working with the youths. They are offering the textbooks and the uniforms and such other financial the support to the young children. Also, they're very active in the environmental issues. They're planting the trees, such as in various parts of the country. Next, please. The future frequency of Dharma and social works different. Like some the social works conducted by monasteries and the lay people organizations very often. Sometimes their social work Dharma activities as they need it. Sometimes it's on a regular basis. Please, next. Buddhist the pioneers of the Dharma activities and the Buddhist social workers, the Buddhist monks. And their activities continue by lay Buddhist organizations. Lay Buddhist organization established by prominent Buddhist monks and also the lay Buddhists. Please go to next slide. This is the very popular and famous lay Buddhist organization in our capital, like Jebsandam Bhotak Center NGO. This founder is the monk. Nyamsambo. Okay. The primary purpose of the Life Buddhist organization is to learn, practice Dharma, and to spread its doctrine to the public. Also, their common interests, the focuses the common interest of its members, establish virtuous cooperation between members, create environment to share their opinions and experience in the Dharma with each other. Also, they organize fundraising and charity events for supporting Dharma and social activities. Encourage its members to involve humanitarian activities such as alleviating people's suffering during natural disasters. Natural disasters is a very peculiar phenomenon in our country. Nowadays, here in around the minus Celsius in India, but in our countries, minus 40 degrees Celsius, very cold climate during the winter time. That time, the nomadic people, also rural people, faces very difficult times. The Mongolian Buddhist monasteries and lay people helping to ease these problems. Please go to the next slide. Please go to the next slide. Yeah, these lay people organizations, they collected it's from members and okay, yeah, I will ending now. Yeah, the activities of the lay people. They're also visiting in prisons, also teaching Dharma in the meditation. That picture shows the Buddhist monks visiting the rural area of the capital city. They're giving the Dharma activities. Dharma activities done by the local administration, also prison, the administration, the serving the communities. And please go to next. Yeah, please go next slide. They're serving and they're giving the food assistance and medical medicines to the underprivileged people. Please go to the next. This is the hard winter climate in our country. Like people very difficult to pass the winter times. The Mongolian lay people Buddhist give providing housing, the gear tents, also providing the calls as their Dharma duty to their community. Please go to the next. Also, the Mongolian Buddhists providing the children the warm meal the project, like the school, they provide the meals during the winter time for children, the warm meals. That picture shows the organizing the meditation events and the language classes for the community. Please go through next. Yeah, it's my conclusion there. Buddhist monasteries and lay people spreading Dharma teaching, guiding society into moral life. And next one is building strong harmony, balance in the society. Mongolian, the organizational structure, human resource activities, slow decision-making process, policy of social work of the Buddhist monastery should be changed in modern times for more efficient, engaged Dharma activities. Dharma activities of lay Buddhist organization relatively flexible, promotional, educational, but its members are consistent of both lay people and monks. They have more social communication skills, but continuity of social activities fluctuating. In the future, both types of Buddhist organizations should cooperate in order to increase efficiency of engaged Dharma activities in Mongolian society. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for interruption. Time we are short of the time. On behalf of the organizers, I thank the four scholarly paper presenters, and I hand over the mic to
Thank you so much, sir. I would now request the Honorable Chair to hand over a token of appreciation to our respected speakers. at the very outset to Venerable Dharmaraja. Sir, but sir, aap. To Dr. Madhu Khanna, Professor Brad Sinha, Dr. Frank Girio. Thank you so much, sir. We'll immediately start our next session, and I'm sorry, my bad. I would request Professor Arvind Sharma to kindly come and hand over a token of appreciation to our chair, Professor S.R. Bhatt. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes. There is a running team. Ladies and gentlemen, we are immediately starting with our next session. So I request all of you to please be inside the hall. We have a running tea and you can obviously go and have any time you feel like. One chair has to be. For the next session, ladies and gentlemen, I would request Shri Shakti Sinha, Director, Nehru Museum and Memorial Library, to come and join us on the stage. Sir, Shri Shakti Sinha will chair this session. As speakers, we have Ma'am Satwa Zhang Yuan. She is joining us from China. Ma'am, please join us at the stage. Mr. Meo Wen, Assistant Director, Department of Religious Affairs, Myanmar. Sir, I request you to please join us on the stage. And Mr. Se Amnan, Deputy Director General of Religious Affairs, Ministry of Culture and Religion, Kingdom of Cambodia. Sir, please join us at the stage. I would request the chair, Shri Shakti Sinha, to take the proceedings from here, sir.
If you could take our seats, we could start the proceedings. Thank you. You can see me up on the screen. I will not really, as chairman, speak too much on this subject, except to say that, and as said earlier also, the evolution of the state and the link with Dharma, and the fact of the matter is that Dharma obviously has been explained in so many ways that I don't need to go into that. But the fact remains that in the Indian concept, in the Indic and as a student of governance, as a student of state building, the origination of the state, more than anything else, what comes across very, very strongly in the Indian traditions, whether it is, of course, the Shanti Parva or the Valmiki Ramayana when Ram is being trained, or in the much maligned Manusmriti, or if you go into South Tiruvalluvar's Kural, you'd see that a few things come out very, very clearly. One, of course, is that there is an implicit social contract between the ruler and the ruled. And the ruler is not ruling in his own self-interest. That the interest of the people and therefore the welfare of the people is very, very important. Two is that the context is also very, very important. Even if you go into the Pali canons, in the Vinaya Patika, the rules of the Sangha are being derived. The rules of the Sangha are not laid down in the form of a constitution, but they get evolved and developed and spoken of as the situation arises. Again, throughout, it comes out that the king's job is to uphold the law, to give justice to everybody, to ensure justice is done. And when situation arises where the law is silent, you evolve to a situation keeping the basic principles in mind. So it is not that it is written in stone or given by a giver and we accept it. Of course, we say Manu is the lawmaker. The fact of the matter is context is very, very important. But at the end of the day, it is righteousness, it is correct conduct. Having said that, let me start with our speakers. Our first speaker is Madam Satwa Zhang, Secretary General of the World Peace and Communications Association from Beijing, China. She has been studying Tao, truth, for a long time, and therefore Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism for many, many years. Getting into the wisdom of the East. She's also worked as a consultant for many departments. She's been so busy studying Tao, as she told me through a friend who was translating from Chinese to English, that she didn't get enough time to learn the English language. And therefore she shall speak to you today in English, but please bear with her. English is not her language. As she said, her life has been spent studying Tao. Madam Zhang, please.
Distinguished heads of state and government, heads of international organizations, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, namaste. Today, in the ancient Buddhist sacred land of India, we are having the summit of international conference, Dharma-Dhamma, which is a meeting with the perfect timing, profound visions, and far insights. The themes and the topic of this conference and urgently need for discussion in today's society from the perspective of the elite. We are in complex and constantly changing world, filled with frequent crises. The huge gap between the rich and the poor, the distrust between countries cannot lead them progress together on the same pod. Tomorrow continues in lots of areas, and the international terrorism is still rampant. The mankind is faced with a serious change. Whether the country in this world can live in peace and make joint faith to seek for development and fix our earth. Materialist, handlism, and egoism have popularized world and push the mankind to didn't. The only way to rescue us is to awaken the intoxicated mind and bring it back to follow the laws of the universe and the human nature. What is delightful for us to see is that a lot leaders in the world are getting more aware of such situation. This conference is a clear proof of the greatness of the India leaders. I strongly believe that our friends here will spare not efforts in contribute your wisdom to help the people in the world break away from the sea of egoism and desire, and to cast off the numbness of ignorant joy, yet with the torture of mind and body. Human follows the law and the principle of the earth. The earth follows heaven. The heaven follows the Tao. The Tao follows the nature. Laozi, a philosopher in the spring and the autumn period, has found his own understanding of the universe and the nature, based on which the relation between him, social activists and universe preserves principles of nature. Laozi had utilized the theory of Tao and virtue to get ancient emperor to rule the world. Tao, or in other words, Dhamma, is the ruler of the sky and the earth. It is the source of all creations. Tao has not found the nature of Tao is being what it is. Laozi said, human follows the law and the principle of Tao. Virtue appears, everything follows the Tao. Order appears confident. Conversely, there will be a inverse favor. Hymns being virtue, and everything follows order. The universe will be in harmony. Otherwise, the entire world will become upside down. Harmony is one of basic principles in moral doctrine. The harmony of nature will make the stars, the tear orderly, the sky is clear, and the earth is pleasantly calm. Weather is favorable. Everything is prosperous. The harmony of the human will lead to a peaceful world. The society will be stable, or the weapons will be kept and locked in storehouse. The harmony of the country and politics will have everybody hard-hearted, or officers fulfill their duties, or works for perform their best, or industry, or flourishing. Everyone has career. The harmony of family will lead to harmonious relationship with relatives. A good relationship between husband and wife. A prosperous and joy for family. The harmony of body and mind will have a balance of yin and yang. A healthy body and peaceful mind. A easy and happy life in one's remaining days. Today, all the disasters orange from the sameness and desire of human, or the chaos and the wars are caused by the contest with each other. It is the human's nature to live on food, clothing in a dead life. However, when a war consuming is become desire, civilian sense of for benefit officers fight for power. Governments fight for land. Everyone is fighting for own desires. How can the world stay away for disasters, chaos, and wars? If from the government to be civilian, everyone can reduce and remove their desire and safeness and getting along well with each other. It is impossible for the world to be in a mess. If leaders of each country wish to have a prosperous country and people staying in peace and a harmonious world, what they are saying and doing must accord with the Tao. And the peoples will, if the human beings and the nature could reach the harmony to same extent, then the solid foundation will be laid for a future path. Only then each country can start a new situation. The harmony of the society brought by the unite of the world and the blessing of the mankind brought by the peace of the world must have been deeply rooted in the laws of nature and the universe. The realization of this goal will depend on the leaders of each country to rectify error mind and cultivate their moral correctitude, put the people's life in front of theirs, and take the perspective of keeping the world peace and avoiding the crises, the bad and rude initiative advocated by Chinese President Xi Jinping is great example and thought, which is to build up a harmonious community of common destiny for mankind. Lastly, I would like to wish a great success for the conference. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you for that. You did remind us that in our topic, in addition to state, there's also social order. And the social order, harmony is important, that we have to live with each other in peace, live with nature. The Tao may have to report to God, but God ultimately is below nature. And our famous Indian teacher, Sakyamuni, Tathagat Sakyamuni Gautam Buddha, evolved his principles of anicca, impermanence and dependent origination, because he lived with nature. He spent all his time in nature, in the outdoors, and he could observe both the dependent origination and the ultimate impermanence of everything. So thank you for bringing the fact that we have to work together in harmony, because ultimately all of humanity has a common destiny. Our next speaker, and I'm going by the list, I follow what is given to me by the organizers. I don't impose my own will. Our next speaker is Mr. Myo Win for Myanmar. He's Assistant Director of the Department of Religious Affairs, Myanmar.
I'm Mr. Mu Win, Assistant Director, the Ministry of Religious Affairs and Culture, the Republic of the Union of Myanmar. I'm very glad to speak here as a speaker. I have the honor to extend my heartiest felicitation and greeting on the auspicious occasion of the 4th International Dharma Conference on State and Social Order in Dharma and Dharma Traditions in the Nalanda University. India and Asia are very important for Buddhism because the Buddhism was built in India, and there are the countries in Asia with higher than 50% Buddhist population, such as Myanmar 89%, Vietnam 75%, Sri Lanka 70%, Laos 76%, Tibet 65%, Singapore 51%, and South Korea 50%. Three countries in Asia are 80% Buddhism of their population. They are Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Laos, Thailand, and Myanmar. Nowadays, Buddhist population have grown in other countries. According to demographic analysis in Asia, there are three kinds of major Buddhist schools: Eastern Buddhism, Mahayana; Southern Buddhism, Theravada; Northern Buddhism, Vijayana. Although Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, Vijayana Buddhism have their particular different approaches to achieve final goal, nirvana, they are the same core beliefs and devotion to the life and teaching of the Buddha. The Lord Buddha set four mental qualities as important for cultivation. He describes them as noble, lofty, and sublime, and strongly encourages their development. They can transform our lives and the world, giving beauty, joy, and meaning. Buddhism can enable and beautiful humankind when the practice of four modes of suffering, living, love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. They are to love all beings equally without discrimination, to be compassionate to all, to rejoice at the happiness and success of others, and to be even-minded, steady, or equanimous in facing the suffering of life. Everybody can cultivate them irrespective of creed or color or race or sex. In the world, all 7 billion human beings desire happiness. Happiness cannot come from fear and anger. Happiness. Therefore, we need compassion, love, and friendship to foster feelings of mutual trust and belonging. Based on the four modes of suffering living, all of the presenters and participation in the 4th International Dharma and Dharma Conference when discuss peace and conflict in Dharma and Dharma traditions, ecology and environmental consciousness in Dharma traditions. To become more understanding within the Buddhist society and other religions, to promote and propagate to Dharma for peace, eco-environment, to begin tolerance and moderation within all religion modernization, to extensive reforms on all spheres of activities, including science and technology, Buddhist and modern education, trade, enhancement, and to the promotion of human rights in the world, especially about rights of children, women, elderly, and their family values enshrined by Buddhism. Moreover, I believe that this conference will give the knowledge, just an idea such as, I think, enhance and consolidate the bonds of fraternity and solidarity among human beings, safeguard and protect the common interest and support the legitimate cause of the Buddhist society with the Dharma, and coordinate and unify the efforts for good things and Dharma in view of the challenges faced by the Buddhist world in particular and the international community in general. Respect the rights of self-determination and non-interference in the domestic affairs, and to respect sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Buddhist countries and other countries. Strengthen economic and trade in the voice of the Dharma to achieve economic integration leading to the establishment of common market and education based on the Dharma. Exert efforts to achieve sustainable and comprehensive human development and economic well-being in societies. Protect and defend the true image of Buddhists to combat defamation of Buddhists and encourage dialogue among citizens and religions. Enhance and develop science and technology and encourage research and cooperation among the Buddhist study and culture in these fields. Therefore, I am strongly confident that all of the presenters can sure extend their support to the International Dharma-Dhamma Conference when the theme of state and social order in Dharma and Dhamma traditions with this convention. I extend my respectful greetings and best wishes to all the participants to attend this conference for the great success based on the light of the Buddha's teaching. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. And thank you for reminding us that the whole purpose of compassion, equanimity, is to live life today. And therefore, its bearing on sustainable development, on a healthy economy, on human rights and human development. The fact that you need all these values in yourself, not for the next life, but to embrace life right now, today. And that is something which obviously fits in very well with our theme of state, particularly of social order. Our next speaker and our final speaker for this session, which I say Amnan, is Deputy Director General of Religious Affairs, Ministry of Cults in Cambodia. He's the advisor to the President of the National Assembly. He's Deputy Director General of Religious Affairs at the Ministry of Culture and Religion. And why I'm reading out this is because of he's doing a lot of things. He's lecturer at the Priya Sihanouk Raja Buddhist University and advisor to the Cambodian Sangha. Mr. Anam, over to you to tell us how in the Khmer people Buddhism has really taken roots.
Venerable monks, Venerable Master, Mr. Chair, Speaker, I would actually like to present something from a Cambodian perspective, and it would be very honors for me to be presenter here. Thank you very much for inviting as well as for the giving me an opportunities. The Cambodian Buddhism was instrumental in fermenting Khmer's national identities and independent movements in the 20th century, leading to Cambodian independence as sovereign state. In the attempt to separate the Khmer people from their cultural allegiances to the neighboring Theravada kingdom of Siam, the French protectorate nurtured a sense of Khmer identity by emphasizing Khmer language study and Khmer's Buddhist studies. They established Pali schools within Cambodian to keep Cambodian monks from traveling to Siam for higher education. These Khmer language study centers become a birthplace of Cambodian nationalism and Cambodian culture today. In Cambodia, Buddhist monks traditionally were called upon to perform a number of functions in Cambodian life. They participate in all formal village festival, ceremony, marriage, and funeral. They have participated in ceremony to name even infants in their ceremony and the rite or ritual. Monks did not only lead the ceremony, however, because the roles were given to the master of ceremony. The monk major function was to say prayer of blessing. They were often healers, and in traditional Khmer culture, they were practitioners whose role was closest to that of modern psychiatrists. The monk traditionally occupy a unique position in transmission of the Khmer culture and values. By his way of life, he provides a living model of the most meritorious behavior a Buddhist could follow him. He also provided a laity with many opportunities for gaining merit. For a century, monks were the only literate people residing in the rural community. They acted as a teacher to the temple servant, novices, and to newly ordained monks. Until the 1920s, the most literate Cambodian male gained literacy solely through the interaction of the Sangha. In addition, during the era of the French rule, conversion of violence led by Buddhist holy men could periodically break out against the French. Significant advances were made in education of Cambodian monks, both specifically Buddhist topics and more general study. Primary education of Cambodian children continued to take place at temple school. Monks were also encouraged to become involved in community development projects. In modern Cambodian society, Buddhist monks were more important to strengthen and promote the social morality. The numbers of orders are like nurses who help us take the medicine of the Dharma. The nurses remind us when we forget which pill to take. If we have difficulty in following the huge pill, the nurses break them into smaller pieces for us. Similarly, the Sangha helps us practice the Dharma correctly when we confuse. Any fellow practitioner who's more advanced than us can be our spiritual friend who can help us. Monastery not only is the place where Buddhist monks live and practice the teaching of the Buddha, but they are also the places where people come and learn Buddhist doctrine for daily practices. Our fascinating aspect of Buddhism in Cambodia is the roles of the temple, playing in development and poverty alleviation. Temple provides something like a self-help for youth, where they have ready access to food, shelter, education, and companionship. There are no rules of herbal to clear before entering the temple, which initially served as a school of sort for monks. Individually, they failed the monk schooling, leave the temples and return many times over. Monastery perform most of the Cambodian festival which are connected with Buddhist observances. Khmer New Year festival takes place in mid-April. The Chumban celebrated in September or in October in a memorial for the deceased ancestor, for the close friend. Makabocha is in January or February celebrated the last sermon of the Buddha. Visakha Bocha in April or in May is in triple anniversary of the birth, date, and enlightenment of the Buddha. Rainy retreat takes place in June or in July. It marks the beginning of parental season, during which the monks must remain in the temple compound. The Katanas mark the end of this season, celebrated in September. It features offering, especially of the robe, to the monk. Cambodian monasteries is so important, play a so important role to society, both in the past and in the present. Cambodian way of life are depending on Buddhism. Cambodian psychologists have used Buddhist meditation technique as a basic in developing common cognitive and behavioral therapies. Therefore, the impact of Buddhism on Cambodian way of life is seen in every aspect of Cambodian life. People of Cambodia understand the cause of Buddhism. All things arises from causes and condition. All things that vanish because of cause and condition. One that is one's own refuge, or who else could be refuge. And as seeds sow fruit, who dash good receive good, whose does evil receive evil. Nonetheless, Cambodian governments is seen to provide full freedoms of beliefs to all religions via Buddhism is a state religion. In this spirit, the royal government of Cambodia have taken a high value by taking Buddhism into national mottos as nation, religion, and king. For Cambodian, Buddhism have contributed so much to development of and maintain peace and orders. Buddhism have taught the mass to be honest, frank, and to know what wholesome and unwholesome, as well as showing the path for liberation for oneself from sin, from unwholesome, refraining from hatred, delusion, greed, going forth for realization of Nibbana. However, our governments urge and support all religions in Cambodia to practice its own religion in cohesive adherence to its genuine discipline and teaching in order to share a part in its achievement to build a just society with refraining from all violent discrimination in consensus with mutual tolerance and understanding. Cambodian render Buddhism as state religion in its constitution on Article 43, which say that both citizens of both sexes are equal right to believe. Freedom of religious beliefs have been guaranteed by the state on the condition of non-violating to other belief or religion or public security order. Buddhism is the state religion. Therefore, despite most of its population accounting to 95% of Buddhist, by active Buddhism, however, the state have attention to provide to other religious beliefs. Freedoms of religious beliefs indeed have been assured and supported by the government. All religions in Cambodia, Theravada, Mahayana, Islam, Christianity, and other religions coexist together in the spirit of mutual understanding and respect based on the concrete principle of peaceful culture, as is mentioned in each teaching of one's religion, and sharing a part in building peace, happiness, and harmony for the nation. Thank you.
Since our speakers have been extremely brief, it gives me opportunity to speak a few words, not too much. In the Indian parliamentary tradition, the Speaker of the House of Parliament is not expected to speak, expected to be only a good timekeeper. I shall slightly breach it because I have the opportunity. And I think I'll start with the point a friend from Sanam from Cambodia mentioned in passing, that the role of the Buddhist clergy, monks in Cambodia, was to give the blessings but not to conduct the ceremony itself. That brings me to the point that Professor Arvind Sharma told us yesterday about being non-exclusive. The fact that the population of Japan is 120 million and the number of believers are 220 million. It enables us in that sense, and throughout this part of the world, we have a very happy combination of overlap. If you go to the Gangaramaya temple in Colombo or any other Buddhist shrine in Sri Lanka, there'll always be statues of Brahma, which you don't find in India, Vishnu, and if it is not Shiva himself, definitely of Kartikeya. The fact that they say that yes, local worship coexists with the Buddhist worship, the two are not in contradictions. And in the Indian tradition, in the Indic traditions, in the larger Jambudvip, this has always been so that one, you're free to exercise your belief. Two, that by and large, rulers have not interfered in the personal beliefs of the people. That the king may be a Shaivite, but that doesn't prevent him giving land grants to a Vaishnava temple. That the king may not be a Hindu, gives grants to Hindu temples, and vice versa, that Hindu kings giving grants for Buddhist monasteries. Because the aim of the king at the end of the day, and I'm using the word king very consciously because we had male rulers. So nothing, today we can't become politically correct and just to sound good. The fact is that the state's role was quite different. But in the process of transition, thanks to colonialism, and I'm not saying it in a sarcastic sense, we have adopted features of the state which are neither here, neither fish nor fowl. So on one hand, we understand how important Dharma-Dhamma is in our day-to-day life, that you don't have to be told what is right, what is wrong. You may still land up doing what is wrong. That's besides the point. But you're aware of the fact that what you're doing is wrong. And yet the structures of the state are not at all in harmony with that. And that is why you have various kinds of crises of governance that we handle all along. But in the Indic tradition, as I said earlier in the beginning very quickly, the job of the ruler was to uphold the law broadly defined. And not, in fact, in the selection of ministers, Tiruvalluvar says that you only select those people as ministers. He lists many criteria. One of them is domain expertise, something that is important in governance. But the other is that the king, the minister, the executive, should not have anybody else working in the administration. In other words, things like conflict of interest was very well known. And Kural, there's a verse which is saying that in time of famine, if your mother is dying, but your duty says do something else, let the minister let his mother die. In the sense that the call of duty is higher than your own family. And that is the ultimate sense of the ruler and the state serving the interest of the people and not the other way around. Which is why you don't interfere in personal beliefs. We are in the land of Magad. The ancient capital of Magad, Rajgarh, was right here. These hills formed a natural barriers surrounding, made it safe. But yet, when the last Nanda ruler had become exploitative and a bad ruler, he had to be overthrown because he had lost legitimacy in the eyes of the people. And this goes all across Indian traditions. Here itself, ultimately, the Maurya dynasty did not last. Even as Ashoka was still the king, rebellions had started breaking out in different parts. I will not go into the causes of that. The fact remains that it's not the mandate of heaven, it is the mandate of the people in that sense. Now, obviously, democracy is a word that modern times we should not use it in Indian context, rightly so. It's not a right word to be used. But the fact is, if the ruler is not upholding the law, if the ruler is unjust, is unable to deliver justice to the people, is unable to ensure that contracts are enforced and the strong bully the weak, that is the test of the ruler. And that from there only can you get Because social order is, again, it is a very strong word. In today's political correct times, social order is not a good word. Social order implies an hierarchy. It implies stability as a cost of what we say, or as a consequence of elite control. That is not what social order actually is supposed to be. When Arjuna is picking up, is asked by Krishna to pick up the sword and not be frightened, it was to uphold the social order, because if there is no social order, it is the weak who will suffer. The strong will get away with it. And therefore, you have to uphold the social order so that justice is done. That is the real dharma. And the structures that we have created, even though the first volume of the Constitution is full of things from our history, from our traditions, reality of the fact is that the state that we have created has completely moved away from that. And the fact that delivering justice is no more the core concern of the government, which has far more things to do rather than deliver on its core. The Mauryan state, and we are in the land of the Mauryan state, was very clear. The king's job was to maintain the security of the state so that the people could live at peace, and therefore you have proper taxation. Why do you have taxation? To collect resources. Why do you collect resources? To ensure that society is safe. Safe for what? Safe for people to live up to develop their potential, do their business, do trading, and therefore in trading, make sure that the weights and measures are correct, so that the consumer is not being cheated. So at every level, the basic job of the state was to ensure that the people are able to live their lives without undue interference, and that they are protected, the weak are protected in that sense, from those who can afford to break the law. I think with that, I'm not going to take more. If there are any pressing questions, we can take a couple of them, or we shall hand over to our organizers. And Madam Vice Chancellor, I must end by saying, I'm so glad you have started a department of Buddhist studies. Indic philosophy traditions was what Nalanda was all about. So whether you think of Nagarjuna, who everybody knows, or Shanti Deva, or Chandrakirti, 70 Nalanda masters, and all Indian traditions, I think Nalanda University, well, I'm glad you have ecology and environment, which is very important in our lives. If Nalanda's core value is not the Indic philosophical traditions, who will do that? Thank you very much.
Any questions, comments by any of you present, or we'll wind up this session? Okay, fine. So we'll now break. We'll reconvene at 2 p.m. But before we do so, I request Shakti ji to present a memento to our delegates, to Ms. Satwa from China. Thank you so much for coming all the way, ma'am. To Mr. Seaman, he's leading a 6-member delegation from Cambodia. Thank you, sir. Mr. Morwin from Myanmar, he's leading a 3-member delegation from the Myanmar Cultural Department. May I invite Professor Braj Sinha to present Shakti ji with a memento as well. Thank you, sir. So we will break now, reconvene at 2 p.m. sharp for our next plenary session. Thank you so much.